Tonight. This is really exciting. I think that, how many of you live here in this area? Okay, and then I'm assuming the rest of you don't live in this area. Very good assumption that on my part. I know. I think it would have taken George Bush a lot longer to figure that out. He would have had to take his shoes off, his shoes and socks off to figure that one out, I think. But I think when the Democrats came into power today, they started yesterday, I think that they thought they were going to get a free pass from us. Yeah, very funny. They thought that they were going to be able to have a 100-hour agenda that didn't say anything about the war in Iraq or impeachment. When we all know that the reason that they regained both houses of Congress was because of war, was because we went out to vote against the war and against George Bush and his policies. I don't think, in a lot of districts, we didn't have a clear choice. So we didn't go out and vote for somebody and their policies because the Democrats really don't have any good policies on the war. We went and voted against the Republicans. We went and voted against George Bush and his policies, and we went to vote to bring the troops home. And for them not to even have it mentioned in their first 100 hours, to me, is appalling. And for Nancy Pelosi to get up and thank Rahm Emanuel and Chuck Schumer for the victory, when it was a grassroots peace movement that Rahm Emanuel worked against every anti-war candidate that ran in the primaries. And actually, some of them that ran in the general elections. Rahm Emanuel worked against every single one of those people.
He's a scumbag.
Yes. Well,
what do you really think?
Yeah, say what you really mean. And also turns out not very brave in the face of opposition either. As soon as we started chanting, they just turned around and walked away. So why I asked you who lived in this area is that we have to be doing this on a rotating basis, on a consistent basis. The Democrats need to know every day that we're not going away and they're not getting a free pass. That we are going to be just as strident with them and persistent with them. Today one of the articles called me a political gadfly. I had to look it up. I wasn't sure what it meant. It meant someone who's persistently annoying. I hope that I'm going to change my name from Peace Mom to Political Gadfly. I like that. We all have to be political gadflies. We all have to do our part. Whatever we can do, we have to be their gadflies. One of these days, they're going to have to do what we say just to get us out of their hair.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why we have to impeach. We have to impeach so 10 or 20 or 30 years from now, these babies who are in here aren't going to have to face another illegal and immoral war of aggression for profit. You know, isn't it amazing when presidents die, how all of a sudden they become the best presidents in the world? The best presidents in history. We all know not George. I can't get him out of my mind. Gerald Ford was a crappy president. You know, we all know that we're sitting here, and I'm sitting here because of him. We know that we're here in the war in Iraq. People say he's a healer. He healed the country after Watergate. Well, I want to tell you, if he healed the country after Watergate, my son would still be alive. Almost 1 million Iraqis would still be alive. 3,004 other Americans would be alive, and thousands would still have their arms, legs, eyes. And when they come back with all of their limbs, they're not coming back the same people. they're coming back mentally and emotionally wounded. And if Gerald Ford had done his job, he would have truly healed this country. Because if Richard Nixon had been prosecuted and imprisoned, George Bush wouldn't think he was above the law. And we were meeting with Congressman Jim McGovern this morning, who is a great person. He's saying, you know, we have to concentrate on the supplemental bill to make sure that that's not passed. But then we asked him about impeachment. He said, I don't want Dick Cheney as my president. And if you've seen me speak at these before, you know my cure for that. Just 4 words: impeach that liar too. We have to impeach everybody that's lied to us. Everybody in this administration who has told one lie to the American public. And we're going to have a hard struggle with this. Because the people who do the impeachment are also complicit in what's going on in Iraq. If they didn't lie to us, they supported the lies, and they support the funding, and they support the war. And Republican or Democrat, if they vote for funding, they are supporting George Bush and his policies. If they say, no, I disagree with the war on this side of the mouth, but they vote yes for the funding with this side of their body, they agree with George Bush and the war. And they're giving him permission to wage the war any way that he wants to, because he's commander-in-chief. And they can say no troop surge as much as they want, but if they vote for the money, they're giving him money to do whatever he wants in Iraq. So we have a very important struggle, but like John said, it is a remedy. It's not divisive, and it's not for retribution. It's not against what the Republicans did to Clinton, which was an abuse of the impeachment process. No, this is a fulfillment of what our founding fathers, I think when they wrote those clauses, they had George Bush in mind. They had a vision of George Bush about what's going to happen to this country. And there are people on this panel that are far more intelligent than I am about the Constitution and about the political process. You know, I was Protestant. Protestant people can say, you know, it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 3, and then I became Catholic, and this is how Catholics quote the Bible. It's somewhere in the Bible it says, and that's how I quote the Constitution. Somewhere in the Constitution it says. And, you know, there's people who can bring that to the table. But what I can bring is a son that I buried who should still be alive. And I'm hoping that I'm going to have grandchildren. And I have other children. And the only way we're going to prevent what happened to their Uncle Casey is by impeaching George Bush, indicting George Bush, and imprisoning them all. Thank you.